Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to call the Washoe County Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, June 6th to order. Can we get a roll call, please, for a quorum? Get all my dates screwed up.
Sarah Savilicek.
Here.
Francine Donchik.
Here.
Michael Flick.
Michael is absent tonight.
Okay. Let the records show that Michael Flick is not in attendance. Daniel Lazareski. Here. Kate Nelson.
Here.
Rob Pierce. Here. Patricia Phillips.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Lazareski, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ms. Gustafson, if we could get the ethics law announcement, please.
Any matter or any person coming before the commission today. Number one, you've received a gift or loan. Number two, you have a pecuniary interest. Number three, you have a commitment in a private capacity, such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship. Or number four, if you've provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter that's being considered here today, please remember to disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. And furthermore, please abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it's clear that the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commissioners are also reminded that under the Planning Commission rules, if you've had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the commission today, you should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gustafson. Secretary Lloyd, if we could get the appeal procedure, please.
Yes, most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Thank you, Secretary Lloyd. Adriana, Brandon, do we have any public comment either in chambers or via Zoom at this time?
I have no public comment in chambers nor via Zoom.
Thank you. Then we'll close public comment. And before we move on to the approval for the June 6th tonight's agenda, I want to notify everybody that item 9A has been removed for tonight. So if you make a motion to approve, would you please make it with the amendment to the change? Thank you.
Motion to approve the agenda accepting 9A.
Do we have a second?
This is Rob. I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda, of course, is the approval of the May 2nd, 2023 draft minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Commissioner Lazareski, I'll make a motion to approve the draft minutes as written.
Thank you, Commissioner Lazareski. Is there a second?
This is Rob. I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Pierce. Are there any questions or discussions on the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 8. Secretary Lloyd, if you would, please.
Yes, this is the Envision Washoe 2040 Master Plan update. For information on the Washoe County Master Plan update, including overview of the March through May public engagement, discussion of area plan feedback, and next steps and opportunities for Planning Commission involvement. Representing Washoe County in this matter are Senior Planner Eric Young and Planner Kat Oakley.
Good evening, Commissioners. Eric Young, Senior Planner, Washoe County Planning. Before we pass it over to Kate for her nice update to you of where we are in the process, I want to just spend just a minute telling you that we're really excited to think that we're going to be bringing you a full draft for an actual public hearing in October. That is our target date. One of the reasons that I'm going ahead and telling you that tonight is to put pressure on ourselves to make it happen, but we have every belief that we can make it happen. So Kat's going to spend some time letting you know how we've got to where we are now, what's going on, and how those next steps are going to unfold as we get to the final stage of some public hearings on this and get a final draft. I want to take just a moment to let you know about some conversations we've had with community members up in Tahoe. I think, as you know, we've used some interesting and new public engagement techniques with this. We're learning a lot about our public engagement. We're going to continue to do some of these techniques. And we've been sending out a lot of our notices and opportunities to engage to the entire county. And in some cases, we've even invited City of Reno residents to comment and provide comments and so forth. But in the plan that went out last time for discussing with the community about the different area plans, we included Tahoe in people's ability to comment. And it turns out that frustrated some Tahoe community members inadvertently. We apologize for doing that. But it did cause quite a bit of confusion because they knew that the Envision Washoe 2040 doesn't really include Tahoe. And so they wanted to know, well, does it now include it? Or what is really the relationship between the Tahoe plan and the Washoe County plan? And why does the Envision Washoe 2040 website contain information about Tahoe? So we caused that frustration. We apologize for it. We're going to go ahead and take down all that information about Tahoe. But it's good information. We don't want people in Tahoe to feel like they wasted their time by responding. We've kept all that information. As I think you know, we're going to be moving into a series of amendments and community engagements up there for the Tahoe area plan. And all of that is really good input. So we're saving all of that, and that all will be used in some capacity to help us identify priorities and so forth as we move on up there. But we're also removing as much of those references to Tahoe as we can, because we noticed that we caused quite a bit of confusion. And I know that you're aware of it, but for all of those listening tonight who aren't aware, the Tahoe planning area for Incline Village and Crystal Bay is governed by a different regional planning agency. And the master plan up there has to meet some significantly different requirements, conformance requirements, than the regional planning agency has for us down here. Still has to meet the same state requirements, and it does. It has the fundamental components that the state requires that a master plan has. But the Tahoe area plan, as it's called, is a separate master plan for the area that's governed by the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. The Envision Washoe 2040 master plan that we're working on now, and you're just about to hear an update on, is for the rest of Washoe County, all of that area of unincorporated Washoe County that is outside the Tahoe Basin and is governed by the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency. So I know you're aware of that, but thank you for bearing with me while I explain that for anybody who may be listening that wasn't quite clear on the separation between that and how those two plans work. And so I apologize for any frustration or confusion that we caused to the people in Tahoe. We really appreciate that they spent the time to provide us some feedback on their community. We're going to maintain it, but we're going to go ahead and take that information off the website so that confusion doesn't continue. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Kat, and we'll have a great opportunity for you to ask questions and engage when she's done. Thank you.
For the record, Kat Oakley, Washoe County Planning. So I'll just jump right into it. This is just an update that's going to include, as usual, some orienting of ourselves and where we are in our schedule and our timeline for hearing and adoption, a summary of the outreach that happened starting at the end of March and then moving into April and May, I believe, and then talk a little bit about the key indicators, which we've been working on behind the scenes, and finally identifying some action items and next steps for us in this update process. looking at the schedule, despite what the star there says, we're in June. And what that means is that we are refining the draft plan. So we brought a draft of the area plans and so forth out to the public. We're incorporating that feedback. We're incorporating feedback from our partner agencies and stakeholders, and then creating Chapter 3, which I'll touch on a little bit down the line, to refine and produce a full draft that we're planning on bringing to the public and to you all this summer in order to prepare for that October first hearing date. In conjunction with that, we are also drafting the development code amendment that will go along with this master plan update in order to move that regulatory language from the master plan to the development code where it can act in a regulatory capacity. And so, well, we'll have our normal diagrams, I believe, right here. So as you all are aware, but just a brief reminder, we're taking the 13, 20, the many separate documents, and we're condensing them into one. That includes the elements and the area plans. And so you're familiar with that structure. I won't belabor it. But it's this area plan element that we most recently brought to the public with the first draft and trying to get feedback on that, because it's a very different format than we are all used to. And so that's why we wanted to do kind of that extra round of engagement with them to make sure that we're all on the same page about the direction that we're heading. So all those area plans, except for the Tahoe area plan, are going to be combined into Chapter 2 of the new master plan. The character statements, goals, policies, and actions that are in those existing plans are going to be refined and condensed into that portion of Chapter 2. And again, we're moving those detailed development code standards into the development code in conjunction with the master plan update, so that it can all flow together cohesively. So just to look at the overall format, and this is what we showed people, is we provided drafts of each area plan, each new area plan, based on feedback from the second questionnaire survey that we put out on the individual planning areas. Based on that, we basically created these drafts, and then what we did in this winter and spring is bring them to people and get feedback on the details of what we said, if they think it was right, if they think we were missing things, if there's anything that needed to be refined, and so forth. So these area plans are now broken into a few different sections, including this future land use map, which we also allowed people to kind of write on and comment on and let us know key features of their communities, constraints, development patterns, those sorts of things. All this kind of makes up those new area plans. So we've got still the vision statement. As you may know, some of the vision statements are very long, on the order of several pages now, and so we're distilling that into a few sentences that capture what's unique about the area. So we took a draft to people and got some feedback on that. We also included development opportunities and constraints tables that identified the key issues and opportunities in the area. What's great about breaking it up in this way for this new format is that it's clear what is what. Right now, in our area plans, kind of everything about an area, about what existed in the past, about what we want to see in the future, it's all together, and so you can't always differentiate which is supposed to be which. And so this is part of the breaking that out. And then we also identified some principles and policies that are applicable to the whole county in many cases, but that people in each of these planning areas were particularly concerned about. And so we call those out in the area plans, and also when appropriate, associate additional specific action items for that region. So moving on to what I know people are probably most interested in, how was the turnout? What feedback did we get? And how did it go? So we had the 4 workshops for the different planning areas in person at the end of March. And I described this in the staff report as well, but some areas, as you can see in that table there, saw very little attendance. Some saw quite a lot of attendance. For example, Warm Springs and the High Desert. We got the highest amount of attendees from those areas and the highest amount of comments. So that was one part of what we did. We also sent out many email notifications that hopefully lots of people got. We hosted a webinar on how to engage with our online commenting platform on April 27th. And then we went out to Gerlach on May 1st for an in-person workshop. What's not reflected in the summary that you all received in the staff report is that we did a Spanish language workshop, our first one that we've ever done, in late May. It's because it took us a little longer to put that together. It was a new thing for us. That feedback is going to be incorporated in the next round, but we did do that. I think it went well, and that we got good feedback as well on how to better reach the Hispanic community the next time when we go out during the summer. So again, I won't go over the numbers in detail because you all have them in the staff report, but this reflects comments that we got in person and comments that we got online through Conveo, which is that online platform that we utilized for soliciting comments. Next, on the key indicators, this is a concept that I believe we introduced to you all the last update we had. As you can see, I did the graphic design on this one rather than our consultant, so it looks a little different. But a key indicator basically is something that is measurable that we can associate with our goals and policies to have some sort of ongoing understanding of how we're doing and be able to report that in a consistent way to the public. And so the idea behind this is that we identified some things that are right now easy for us to measure and start to keep track of, and that we'll incorporate those into the annual report that we provide for the regional planning agency, and also ideally that we will have an online dashboard that reflects these. So these are some things that we, in many conversations, mostly with other agencies who track a lot of this data, that we identified that we think are meaningful and that will be easy for us to implement for this first wave, and that we can add more or change things as we kind of take our first crack at this concept and figure out what works and what doesn't. And so this is kind of something that's associated with the master plan that is going to operate in parallel as a measurement tool, but is not going to be necessarily all of this precisely in the text of the master plan. So we're happy to hear any thoughts you guys have on these after this presentation. Now to talk a little bit about next steps. We've basically already talked about it, but we're writing chapter 3, which is action, or the implementation. And so this is going to identify as an action with each policy that we have, basically the way that we're going to achieve that policy. And so there are 4 kind of different buckets of things that we can do. First, development code revision, so writing a new piece of code to address an issue. We can do capital projects or identify capital projects, right? So roadway improvements or pedestrian facilities and so forth. Plans and studies, so identifying areas in which we need more information. And then programs and resources, which would be basically creating the infrastructure institutionally for those ongoing initiatives that we identify. We can also associate those with time frames, so there are ongoing and immediate actions, things we have to do all the time, or things that we have decided through this public process is most important to people, short term, within 5 years, so not necessarily ongoing, but soon, midterm 5 to 10 years, and long term 10 to 20. So we're basically trying to associate all actions with one of the buckets and one of the time frames. You'll notice we're keeping them broad enough that hopefully we don't overwhelm ourselves, which is not the goal. In terms of what's next, we're finishing the draft. We're going to bring it back to you guys, and we're planning our next round of public outreach, which will include attending established events so that we can increase awareness of the project, doing some more workshops, getting some more online feedback. And then, as always, we want to remind everybody that we have our photo contest. We want photos for the master plan and to submit them if you have any. And with that, I'm sorry I talk so fast, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Kat at this time? Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Kat. That was an excellent presentation. We appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're moving on to item 10A. Secretary Lord, if you would, please.
Yeah, this item is an amendment of conditions for case number WAC 230005, the Lakeside Custom Lot subdivision that was originally approved as WTM 21013, and the special use permit WSUP 220010. It's for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve an amendment of conditions for case number WTM 21013 and WSUP 220010 for grading to accommodate a pedestrian path system, a surface water irrigation pond, an enlarged detention basin, and drainage channels for stormwater runoff to the detention pond. The new proposal increases the cut material from 20,000, just over 20,000 cubic yards to 41,057 cubic yards, and fill material from 16,583 cubic yards to 25,981 cubic yards, and the disturbed area from 8.31 acres to 13.36 acres. The request includes modifying standards to allow slopes greater than 3:1 per Washoe County Code 110-438-45A. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Julie Olander.
Thank you. Julie, one moment, please. Commissioners, do you have any disclosures, either ethics or ex parte at this time?
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes, Commissioner
I
Phillips.
live in the same zone, and I am acquainted with the presenter tonight from the developer. It will have no effect on my decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips.
Let me just ask a few follow-up questions. When you say you live in the same zone, what do you mean by that?
I'm not really going to be affected other than, how can I put it? I live nearby, but I will not be affected by this.
Okay, do you live adjacent to this subdivision? Is your property bordering this subdivision in
No.
any way? Okay. And how do you know the developer? Do you have a social relationship with the developer or a familial
We were on
relationship?
the cab together.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Good afternoon, good evening, Julie Olander with Planning and Building.
Okay, we're all that
Forgetting
way
what time it is. Just slips on by. So this is an amendment of conditions for a tentative map that came before you, and they're asking to amend the map to accommodate a pedestrian path, irrigation pond, to enlarge a detention basin and add a detention basin, and for drainage channels to manage stormwater runoff. So just to remind you, this is located off of Holcomb Ranch Road and Lakeside. It's that large parcel. It's outlined in turquoise. And just to remind you also what the tentative map was about, it was dividing the 72-acre parcel into 24 lots, and then the lot sizes were ranging from 2 acres to 10 acres. And then they also asked for a special use permit for major grading, and also a modification to vary the finished grade standard grading requirements from 10 feet in elevation. So I just want to show you sort of the original grading, which is up on the upper part of the screen. That was what they originally asked for, and then if you see at the lower, you can see there is some more. That has more red on it, has a larger area of grading on it, and I'll go further showing exactly what's happening in those areas. But you can sort of see a difference in the grading areas. So the proposed grading is to increase the cut material from 20,000 cubic yards to 41, and I'm just going to round these out, 41 cubic yards, and then the fill material from 16,583 cubic yards to 25, almost 26 cubic yards, and then just disturbed area from 8 acres to 13 acres. And like I said, it's for a pedestrian walkway, the irrigation ponds, and the detention ponds. So here shows where the pathway is going to be located. It's going to be located on the streets, just on one side throughout the community. And then the irrigation ponds, they're proposing to use surface water from the steamboat ditch for irrigation. And this was an agreement they came to with the neighbors, because the neighbors were concerned about their wells and the use of well water. So they're proposing to add this irrigation pond, which will store water from the ditch on Lot 9. It's about almost 11-acre parcel, and that irrigation pond will be managed by the HOA. And here's where the irrigation pond will be located. And if you remember back to the grading, that was one of the areas that was bright red. And then for the detention bonds, they're proposing to add, to enlarge the one that was on the original tentative map and then add another one, just basically at the entrance of the development. And then they're also proposing to do a cutoff drainage swale, and that's also going to help with runoff and stormwater issues. And I'll show you here. Here are the two detention ponds. The larger one at the top was the one that was approved in the original tentative map, that they're proposing to enlarge that. And then the other one is at the other side of the entrance. And then over to the left side of the screen, there's where the drainage swale will be located. So this will all help with runoff on the property. And this has just come about as they've gone through further engineering on the site. They've found that they need to address these, the runoff issues, stormwater and runoff. The applicant is also asking, and this should have been done in the first tentative map, but we realized it really wasn't pointed out in the first tentative map. They're going to have slopes of 2 to 1 in the emergency road that's going to be exiting out of the northern portion of the parcel. And so they're asking for just a basic clarification to add that into this request, because they want to make sure that's on the record that they've asked for the 2 to 1, even though it was on the map and you approved that map with that 2 to 1 slope. And I'll show you where that's located. So if you remember, a request was to put an emergency exit off of the southern portion of the property, and that's going to be crossing Dry Creek, so it's going to be a lot of slope in there, and so they have a lot of 2 to 1 slope in there to have that, to put that roadway in. So that's just sort of confirming what you already approved in the tentative map, but it's calling it out. Property owners within 500 feet were noticed, and that was included basically was 40 parcels. This is an amendment of condition, and no neighborhood meeting was required for the amendment of conditions. Various agencies responded to the application, and the ones with conditions, which I believe are just engineering and planning, we have conditions that are in addition to the original conditions for the tentative map. Staff is able to make all the findings, and here's a possible motion. I'm available for question, and then Dave Snellgrove, the applicant's representative, is here, and I believe he has a presentation and is available for questions too.
Thank you, Julie. Dave, if you're ready.
Good evening. For the record, Dave Snellgrove with CFA. I'm the planning manager and working on behalf of 8900 Lakeside LLC. Can you make sure that Roger Davidson, Adam Giordano, and Matt Sutherland, that phone number that I gave you is what he's on? Great. So yeah, I think Pat was just leaving the CAB as I was coming on to the CAB. I think we spent 1 or 2 meetings together. It's good to see you in the show. So this is our previously approved map, and just kind of points out what Julia talked about. And I want to thank Julia. She did a great job in covering things, so I'll try and go through some of the items rather quickly. Over on the eastern side of the site, coming off of, you have Lakeside Drive and then Holcomb Ranch Road, where it takes that bend in the upper right-hand corner of the map. It used to be called Lombardi Lane that goes due south. It's now Brady Ranch Road. Our access comes in off of Brady Ranch Road. And then we have an emergency access that would go out over to Bellhaven. And that's the one that crosses Dry Creek. So Dry Creek runs in that fashion, and we do have a crossing of it with our emergency access road. So the items that I want to cover, and this doesn't show the trails on it, but from left to right, the 2 to 1 slopes, I'll go through these in order. The irrigation pond, and then the expanded detention areas and the cutoff drain. So Julie pointed out, we had these on the map before. We didn't label them 2-to-1. We did have a quib in our application. It talked about 2-to-1 slopes going through the drainage, but other than that, we were silent on it. And part of what we realized is going through this, we probably need to make sure that, because that is a deviation from the standard of code. The standard says you can't go over 3-to-1 unless you have an allowance. So we're making sure that we're asking for that allowance to make sure it's clear. If we can't go to 2-to-1, we're starting to either work with walls and or 3-to-1 slopes, which really has a much larger impact on the drainage way, and we're trying to minimize that as much as we possibly can for that emergency access crossing. Julie went over the agreement, and this agreement got finalized and formalized a day or two before the Planning Commission hearing. We were heard on November 1st. I have a letter dated that went over to the county to let them know, yeah, we have agreed to these things with the neighbors. That was dated on Halloween, a day before our meeting. So one of the bigger ones and one of the big concerns that we heard from the neighbors when we were going through the last Planning Commission hearing was concern about the aquifers being drawn down. Typically speaking, any residence, if you establish, you can get 2 acre-feet of water. Well, there was 182 plus acre-feet of surface water that was available that could easily be used for all the landscaping. There are some facilities that have to be put in place in order to do that. And that gets us to the irrigation pond. I guess part of this, we could call this application, hindsight's always 20/20 type application, because there's a few things that are added that we kind of knew about, but realized the magnitude only after the fact. The location of the irrigation pond is shown as part of Lot 9, which is a 10.79 acre parcel. We anticipate this will probably be just in an easement that will be maintained by the homeowners association. It could be divided off potentially as just a common area parcel, but in all likelihood, it will probably just be in an easement. Up in the top right-hand image or the plan view, you can see there's an access around it for maintenance, and then the pond area. We've been working with the Steamboat Creek, or Steamboat Ditch Company. They have some requirements in terms of construction in proximity to the ditch, so they want to make sure that those are handled. We'll have to go through and get the necessary permits, but we'll feed water into the ditch, and that'll be the holding and settling area before it goes into a system that they put in place to serve landscape irrigation water to the home sites, the 24 home sites, and also watering the common areas. This will help to put water that was previously going into the aquifer back into the aquifer, because this had been a grazing land before, so we'll be getting that water and keeping that water going into the aquifer through providing irrigation. Let's see, went one too far. There we go. The enlarged detention basins, everyone knows, and probably very happily, that winter's over, and we saw quite a bit of runoff. When we went out, some neighbors called Mr. Davidson and Adam Giordano and let them know, hey, there's a lot of flooding, and it was happening right there near the Holcomb Ranch Road, Brady Ranch Road, Lakeside Drive intersection, more on the Brady Ranch Road area. So we were able to witness what was happening there, and realizing kind of better where the water was going. There was also some impact to the property that is just north of the site, and I have a map that shows that. The plan view on this, well, over on the left-hand side, the colored map shows our previous detention. We wouldn't have made it as boxy as it shows, but going through this, we've tried to make the detention basins a little more natural in terms of shape configuration, but also added quite a bit more storage. We've got about 1.7 acre feet of storage available in these 2 detention ponds. Move to the next slide. This shows the cutoff ditch, because all the land kind of slopes up to the northeast. We were finding that there was runoff that was impacting Mr. Owen's property just to the north of us. Not in a gigantic fashion, but enough that we needed to make sure we were handling that. So this cutoff ditch will be along our northern property line, and it'll run down into our detention basin. So hopefully we can stop any impacts to the nearest by neighbor there on our north side. Let's see. Oh. Well, I just had a label for it. The trails, and I didn't have these on the first map, and Julie had the same image up that I put in the application. We do have trails on both sides, and what we're proposing is they're going in a 20-foot easement. In the flatter areas, it's not a big change in grading, but as you get into some of the steeper portions of the site, and I've pointed those out here, you can see where the grading goes out a little bit farther and pushes away from the roadway a bit more. Those are the areas where if you put a 20-foot area that's relatively flat, you push the grading out quite a bit. One of the things that we can do, and we'll work with this as we go more into the plans and ultimate construction, is look at some of those tight areas, and maybe it makes sense to narrow the path, not the path itself, but the easement and flat area out a little bit more. Try and make sure we're not impacting grading too far out. We did design this with the assumption that we could go up to 20-foot flat area for the path, and then we'd go up or go down, whichever contour we're on. So the grading amount in this we'd see as kind of a worst-case scenario in association with the trails, because I think there's things we can do as we get into actual construction and design that'll help soften that. Doesn't want to go to the next one. Those are just cross sections. That's a downhill and an uphill type perspective and cross section to show the trail area and the slopes above or down below. So we believe that all of the proposed modifications have been provided, bring a positive to the future community with trails, trying to address some of the drainage and flooding concerns that are existing out there at the site. We feel is a positive to the overall community. And then also the irrigation pond itself and utilizing that surface water. Also, we feel a positive and something we agreed to with the neighbors, so we're trying to affect that. With that, I will close my presentation, and I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you. At this time, Brandon or Adriana, do we have any public comment either in chambers or via Zoom?
I have no public comment in chambers. I have no public comment on Zoom.
Thank you. Commissioners, at this time, do you have questions for either staff or the presenter? Yes, Vice Chair Sifilczyk.
So I guess for staff, and when we previously approved this and the health district, well, it's still called Washoe County Health District, but they've changed their name.
Well, not formally yet.
Well, okay. They said they had no concerns with the amendments, but this detention or this irrigation pond is very different from the previous plan. So the health district didn't have any comments on vector control or anything with standing water?
I didn't get any from them. I would think that, I'm just trying to get back to my original staff report and see what they had on that one, because that's.
And I don't have mine, of course.
Yeah, let me go back there and see if I can find it, because that's where, you have this?
Yeah, they might have addressed it in the
Yeah.
detention
I'm
basins.
sure they did.
But the irrigation pond is significantly larger. And will always have water in it when they're irrigating.
That's okay, I'm getting there, I think. 22, what is it? What's the original? What's that? Can you give that 22? What's the original? Can I give that? Oh my gosh. What is it? I know. I'll go back there.
It was 21013.
2103, thank you.
Julie, it looks like on page, page 17 of the staff report, the health department did provide comments. Jim English with the health department provided the comments. It said Washoe County Health District has reviewed the application and has no concerns with the applied amendment of conditions. And then all previous comments and conditions of the subdivision are still applicable. Is that what we're looking for?
I knew that. I was just
Yeah.
going back to the original one. So it basically, Dave Kelly responded to the original one. He said, future well installation is proposed as part of this map. Permits for well installation will be required by the health department, and then the current proposal is for lots to be served by municipal sewer, and any change to utilize septic will require a different lot size and new review. So they didn't comment on the detention. And we have not been getting vector control type comments from them for some time.
Okay,
I'm not
because
sure if that's just something they aren't checking as much anymore, or
All right.
what the situation is over there.
because there's been an increase in a concern for standing water because of the wet weather we've had. And then Nevada Department of Agriculture has been expressing a real concern about vector control for mosquito abatement. And I know that the health district was changing how they were going to do that, but we now have a large irrigation pond that's a large body of water.
And that might be something they're addressing after the fact, in a sense,
Okay.
not managing that way. But as I say, we haven't been getting conditions per se about vector control, at least as far as I'm aware of. And I know maybe Mr. Lloyd would be more familiar with some of them, but I have not seen vector control comments.
I'm just concerned about that
I
larger
can
body of
appreciate
water.
that, yes.
Trevor,
Mr.
did you hear Sarah's
Do you have
question?
any comments on the vector control comments or lack
I
of
thought he was
comments?
looking, so.
I'm looking, and I didn't
Okay.
see any. Yeah, and Julie's correct. We typically don't receive as many. We used to
Yeah.
receive the comments from vector control. I do believe that's wrapped into the permit, the grading permit that will come after approval of this discretionary review. So they do look at that during the grading, the review of the grading plans.
So if that could be addressed, because there will be a large body of open water.
And during the grading permit, then they are going to be able to see what that is going to be exactly, and what the requirements are going to be on the applicant at that time.
Okay.
But I'm going to check on this one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spilczyk. Anybody else? All right. Seeing no more questions, commissioners, I will close the public hearing and bring it back for a call for discussion, or if there's no discussion, a possible motion, ladies and gentlemen.
I'd just like to comment that it seems like that this is, as staff has said, an improvement in the direction of the comments from the neighbors. And I appreciate that it's work for the applicant to bring a modification to us and submit a whole nother package. And I appreciate that that work is being done to make it more suitable to what the neighbors requested.
Thank you, Commissioner Lazareski. Anybody else have any comments? Hearing none, I open it for motion.
Chair Donchek.
Yes, Vice Chair Sedilczyk.
I'm prepared to make that motion.
Please do.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and the information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve amendment of conditions case number WAC 23-0005 for 8900 Lakeside LLC, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter having reaffirmed all 10 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.608.25, and all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
Thank you, Commissioner Sedilczyk. Do we have a second?
Nelson will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Any further questions at this time? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Moving right along, on to item 11. Chair and commission items. Item 11A, any requests for future agenda items at this time? Hearing none, we move on to item 11B, requests for information from staff for the future. Hearing none, we'll move right along to item 12, directors and legal counsel's items. Item 12A, report on previous planning commission. Secretary Lloyd.
Yeah, there's a number of items to report on. At the May 23rd County Commission meeting, the County Commission approved the master plan and regulatory zone amendments for Village Green, the master plan and regulatory zone amendments for Franktown Road, as well as the regulatory zone amendment for the Bellhaven Drive project in the Southwest Truckee Meadows. And then on the May 9th County Commission meeting, the BCC upheld the appeal of upheld the decision of the Planning Commission for the Piranha Solar Project, and that was the transmission line specifically. That's all that I have to report on.
Thank you, Secretary Lloyd. Ms. Gustafson, any legal information and updates for 11B this time?
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I do have a question, if I may. I was hearing about all the possible open meeting law changes that were going on at the state level. Would any of them possibly impact us?
That's something that we're going to have to look at. As you know, the session just ended, so we are getting a list of bills as far as what has actually been signed by the governor at this point. And if there are open meeting law changes, then we will likely schedule a updated training at one of the Planning Commission meetings for all of you.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're on to item 13, public comment. Is there any public comment either in chambers or via Zoom?
I have no public comment in chambers, but I do have one hand raised via Zoom. Helen, if you could please unmute, state your first and last name for the record.
My name is Helen Neff. I'm an Incline Village resident. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just want to express my appreciation to Manager Brown, Mr. Young, and the County Planning Department staff for sorting out the confusion surrounding the Tahoe area as it relates to Envision Washoe 2040. The email communication sent today and the explanation provided at the beginning of the presentation this evening provides the clarity that we were requesting, specifically why there was no in-person meeting for Tahoe, and the statements that the Tahoe area is not included in Envision Washoe 2040, but rather under the Washoe County Tahoe Area Plan. So I just wanted to express our appreciation for the attention to straightening this out on my behalf and also the residents of Incline Village and Crystal Bay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else via Zoom at this time?
There's no more public comment.
At this point, we will close public comment and motion to adjourn. We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.